Transformation and automation in today's physical security world, brought to you by Convergint and VectorFlow. I'm Doug Greenwald with Convergent's digital transformation team, and I am responsible for what we've termed identity assurance. And joining me today from VectorFlow is Kyle Elliott, VP of Global Sales, and Lou Kaputzel, Director of Technical Solutions. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Great to be here, Doug. Thanks. It's going to be an exciting 30 minutes, and looking forward to talking to the audience today.
Excellent. We have a lot of ground to cover. Lou's going to be helping us walk through a couple of things as well. So just some housekeeping items. This is recorded. And in addition to that, if you have any questions throughout our presentation, please feel free to put those into the chat. And towards the end, we'll go ahead and get to those.
So let's kind of kick things off. Our theme today is around digital transformation, but that can mean lots of different things to different people, right, Doug? Whether you're in IT or in security. But I have one question, right? Convergent's known worldwide as kind of the leader in technology and IT and physical security, right? Your customers really rely on you to keep them safe, to automate processes, to be proactive versus reactive. So is there kind of a general burning theme that you're hearing kind of continuously for customers in this hybrid, weird workforce world? We're back to work. What's kind of the recurring theme that you're hearing that people are kind of thinking and worrying about?
Yeah, so there's probably a couple of things, right? The first is that we're looking to do more with less, right? Automation is coming to the forefront of physical security more than ever before. And it's really as an impact from, still reeling from COVID, still having to deal with people coming back to facilities in this hybrid workforce. So one of the things that we're finding is that organizations really don't know or have visibility to understanding how people are being provisioned from the past into today. And that really comes down to, how do we gain that visibility? And how do we do it in a way, because we have so much data, that allows people not to have to take on more work in a manual fashion. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's you hit the nail on the head. We've all been, out of the traditional workplace for, I don't know about you, but I haven't been back to the traditional office in almost 3 years. But now I'm being asked to come back in at least, a couple of times a week. My badge is outdated. I haven't had an update picture. They actually closed my old office. I'm now moving in a new office, so I don't even know whether, my access provisioning and where I'm supposed to go. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. And yet security is really constricted, right, in regards to the size of the workforce. And there's a lot of systems out there that, have great data, but none of them are really conjoined. So one of the things I think I'm hearing you say is that there's a high degree of risk right now around sort of insider threats. People that are coming back into the traditional workplace, there may be bad characters, there may be disgruntled employees. We've got more contingent workers. We don't know much about those guys, and let's be honest, there's bad characters out there. What's kind of the impact that is potentially going to happen with these insider threats and these activities with your customers?
Well, to start with, right, you're putting a high degree of burden on your security teams to be able to not only read through that information, but make intelligent decisions based on what they find. And knowing that you have a lot of folks not only coming back to the office, and to your point, it is a lot of contingent or contract workers that are coming back depending on the industry that you're in. I think the other thing that we're seeing, right, is that we are going through a little bit of an economic shakeup as well, where the impact over the next 12 or 24 months could require some offboarding of employees. And as a result, if you don't have great processes in place, if you don't have a way to understand, when business units maybe get downsized or stop working from the office, how do you know those people aren't taking negative action against your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it from the onset that digital transformation is all about automating processes that are typically done manually, that are expensive, time-consuming, and frankly take a lot of risk on. Because let's just be honest, human beings running through steps. We skip steps, we go around the curve, we don't report things. We just don't think that way. We're very reactionary to what's in front of us. So, especially when it comes to identity and access provisioning, deprovisioning, rebadging, but also looking at behaviors of people that may be bad characters and represent some significant risk is really important to automate.
Yeah, so let's talk about two examples that kind of fit this model to set the stage for everyone.
And then, this is whether, the audience is in any different kind of vertical that, there's a large compliance, right? I mean, healthcare and bioscience has a lot of, FDA and DEA type of compliance. You got to make sure that only the right people are getting access to labs and other sensitive areas. But you can be a tech company. It's the same kind of paradigm if you're going into the data center. It's all about assumed risk. But, this particular organization, just didn't have visibility, right? People were being, given access or the wrong access or too much access. Or in some cases, they just had a higher number of contingent workers because they weren't able to fill full-time worker positions fast enough. And inevitably what happens, right? There's card sharing happening, which meant that if you were provisioned and had access to this particular lab, and I was one of your colleagues from ABC Workforce, you might share that card with me and I might inadvertently or maybe on purpose get access into a restricted area. And that's a big deal, right? That means fines, that means audit failures, that could mean, gosh, we were looking at the numbers earlier before, it could be a very costly and significantly impactful type of event. So the whole idea is to eliminate that with digital transformation and automation that will be watching continuously and provide proactive notifications around risky behaviors and other things so that you can eliminate things like card sharing, card cloning, or people that are trying to get access where they shouldn't go.
Yeah, things that from an organizational standpoint, you feel like those folks are already trusted. So it's okay to do some of those things because, well, they're important.
Sure.
It's acceptable, right?
Yeah.
So how do we offset that? How do we understand that? Well, you got to get visibility to it first and foremost, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So another example that I want to share here is there was a major US bank, and essentially we had a contractor who was in the IT side of the house, and they ended up attempting to deploy a ransomware attack. And what they ended up doing is basically coming in at off hours and using their badge at doors to see if any one of those would open. So you get a lot of badge denied alerts. And first and foremost, right, who's watching for those, right? Do you have somebody constantly evaluating those? And when they see a badge denied request, are they going back and looking at CCTV footage? Are they investigating that particular badge to understand, is this an employee, is this a contractor? No, in most cases, you're getting flooded with not just, badge activity, but you're also probably seeing a lot of alarms from doors and other devices surrounding your PAC system. So with that, this person was able to come in, off hours, check doors, and eventually was able to access an IT room where they were able to plug in a USB port and actually deploy their ransomware. And so from this perspective, and again, should have been trusted a contractor. They had passed through and had the appropriate access, but in some way they were able to get over provisioned. And so their behavior not only changed, but they were not correctly provisioned. So how do you understand that? How do you get visibility to it? And how are you end up being proactive in those particular scenarios?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way. Right. VectorFlow has been partnered with Convergint for some time now and deployed some really amazing physical security, digital transformation and automation across identity and access management, insider threat intelligence, workplace occupancy, even SOC automation. And a question that we constantly get asked is, hey, we're already doing this today, right? I can look into my Linnell system or my Secure, my AMAG, and I can run a report. And the reality is nobody's actually watching. Right? And you're getting yesterday's news from a report if you're good enough to actually go through that and determine what actually exhibit behaviors and changing kind of a risk score. You really need real-time data processing. You need, the support and help of artificial intelligence to look at both the legacy data and the real-time data to look at behaviors and patterns. For example, if you're a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 guy, but you start coming in on weekends, or you're coming in an hour earlier or staying an hour later, that might mean nothing, but it could mean something, right? Don't you want to receive kind of notifications about that kind of behavior? If you start fishing your door around and it goes beyond, say, 3 in 1 minute, do you want to take some corrective action before that card goes further and actually gets to the door? So this is not PACT, right? This is not PSIN. This is proactive digital transformation of data to receive actionable intelligence and real-time alerts around risky behaviors and stop them before damage is done.
And ultimately behaviors that no one looking at a traditional PACS, dashboard is going to actually understand and be able to interpret what's the impact, why do I need to take action around that, and then what is the resulting either investigation or outcome associated with that. How do we log that and understand?
Yeah, 100%. So, as I said before, it doesn't need to be this way, right? There are simple solutions. They are highly affordable. They can be deployed typically in days. They connect to the various systems, like building solutions and Internet of Things devices and physical security sensors, data, logs, applications, certainly physical access control system or systems. But the whole idea is it should be kind of plug and play, right? It should be very affordable. We know the budgets are restricted right now. It needs to deploy quickly and provide almost immediate business value. And it has to kind of absorb into the culture of the security team, the facilities team. It's got to be able to do all those things and provide the richness and the detail and the visual aspects of how am I doing, what do I need to pay attention to, and how do I take corrective action. And there's customers that are very progressive, and they're doing this today.
Yeah, especially at the enterprise level, right? We're talking about organizations that have, hundreds of facilities spread out globally. Maybe they even have multiple different physical access control systems, so they're having to manage and understand what's happening within each one of those regions, down to the facility. How do you get down to the individual and understand that? Let's take an example, right, with like a BP who is based out of the UK, but they have a lot of folks that have to travel to sites across the world. And so if I'm an employee traveling, how do I get my badge access enabled for the site that I'm going to? And how does someone ensure and then be able to track and understand my behavior when I arrive at that site? Is it just general access being applied? Is that even appropriate for the role and the individual that's traveling? And then once I'm on site, am I trying to take advantage of that open access and trying different doors and doing things? And again, this may be a little bit more big brother conversation and maybe a little bit uncomfortable to come to the realization that maybe we need to start taking steps to understand how we comb through this data and make more intelligent decisions. But it's a real challenge today because each one of these organizations that we talk to and talk about have had something like this happen. And it's always reactive. It's always after the fact, context and data that's able to show the pattern.
Yeah.
So how do you prevent it in the future?
Yeah. So, and the great thing is you don't have to be a huge company to be able to afford the solution. As I said earlier, it's got to be affordable. Maybe a subscription or a SaaS type of license so that you can use it and realize the power and the benefit of it for not a lot of money, get it up and running quickly. And I think that's, really important from the standpoint of where we are in today's kind of different world and returning to the workplace. So here's a question. I mean, we talked a lot about, risky people, right? Somebody's a bad character. They're doing things that are out of the ordinary. They're utilizing their physical access or their badge in a way that shouldn't be done. Okay, we're going to now have real-time insights and visibility. Is that all that matters, though?
It's not. So when we think about, and this slide really shows you the different areas in which you can glean information surrounding an insider threat, right? So behavior of, your employees, contractors, temp workers, right, is one component of it. But then it also lends itself to understanding what's actually happening at a physical site. Is a site more at risk because of, the type of information we store there, the type of facility that it is? Also, can it be because that facility is predominantly temp worker, contractor workers, and there's a higher risk inherently just because of the onboarding, offboarding process associated with those? And then when we take not only the individuals and the site that they're at, the next component that really opens itself up to risk is just the endpoints associated with those physical security devices that can be a pathway into the organization, whether that's faulty door contacts or things associated with how the building is actually in operation. It all is data points that can help us understand how a site's being utilized. Is it the actual behavior of the user, or is it impact of the facility and the devices associated with it that are impacting the alarms? But I think the bigger thing here is this is a lot of information to digest. Not only now am I getting visibility and having alerts surface around the behavior of individuals and the site that they're at, but now I also have to take into consideration, all right, now I also have devices that I'm monitoring and have to understand, are doors being forced, held open, are people tailgating as a result of those things, or are none of those activities actually happening? It's just a problem with the device itself. So now it opens us up to another side of the conversation of, all right, what more do we need to look at?
All right, hold that thought, because I think that's an important topic to cover. But I hear everything you're saying. So it's not just about the the human being and the person that's carrying the card around. It's also looking at risky sites, risky facilities, maybe that haven't actually been touched in quite a while, right? Because everybody's been gone, and even to the device level, right? That risky behavior, then they get access to the device. That's their entry point or their gateway into that behavior. So you want visibility and insight to that. And I think also really important, the audience is going to care. We talked about this before. A solution that's adaptable and flexible to deploy within their ecosystem. So no rip and replace, right? No changing of current processes and policies. Give us better visibility so we're proactive instead of reactive. Give us a visual or reposition, maybe a dashboard type of view to be able to see events coming over and giving us detailed analysis about what's happening, and then maybe providing some corrective action. So I think from that standpoint, maybe Lou, you could kind of give us a show and tell. What would a kind of a good looking threat intelligence dashboard look like and do? And let me go ahead and I'll pass this over to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I think you guys touched on some, really those key elements, to not only the problems that exist, how does it impact our people? How does it impact our organization? And what are the things that we can do? What are the steps we can take to start to solve these problems? Reduce these risks and mitigate these issues. and really, you touched on a little earlier, is vector flow is utilizing and leveraging your existing technologies today, right? So we're not, introducing any additional hardware and software that's required. We're able to make use of that data and use the power of AI, machine learning, to aggregate that data and build risk profiles around all of your people, your identities, your devices, and so forth, to really give you not only a very important and simple, user experience to understand where these threats are, but automate the actions to be able to start to mitigate those risks. So our dashboard-driven application is completely browser-based, very easy to consume. There's lots of important data here, and really driven on some really key metrics. So the key here is to be able to identify those threats. What are the source of those threats? Is it people? Is it device? It's what are highest risk sites and so forth. So making it easy to consume, but also be able to quickly take action. Representing that data for the CSOs, all the way down to the site operational managers, giving them context-sensitive information to allow them to take the steps that they need to start to handle those risks. So let's take, for example, our identity risks here. I can see very clearly my top 10 identity risks. And why are those people on this list? Well, we have these different, what we call risk metrics. So I can see here, Juan Bowling is at the top of this list because he has a high number of access denials that impact his score. Also, he's the source of a number of alarms that we've been able to find through investigation. So all these different risk metrics have different scores associated with them. And as people's behavior, just normal behavior, things that they do, their movements, vector flow can understand that, interpret that, and then visualize that for your operational staff. Now, we've said it's one thing to visualize this information. Great. I have one place to look for that. But how do I use this to take automated actions? I'm going to pull up another page here just real quick, and to be able to show you how we do that. So on this page, what you'll be able to see here is our risk playbooks. So what this does is gives us the ability now to automatically identify when there are a certain number of, in this case, access denials, right? If there are a certain number of access denials within a certain time frame at a particular location, or for a particular secure area, we want to take some automated actions. Think about your bank when it sends you an email or a text saying, was this you trying to access or perform a transaction? So not only we do that, we take it a step further, where if this is a super high risk area or a facility, we can also perhaps automatically suspend access to that area or disable that person's badge. So depending on the severity of the offense or potential, behavior that this person is exhibiting, we can do some really unique things to allow you to, again, be much more proactive versus reactive.
Excellent. Yeah, I appreciate you showing us that, Lou. And a few good questions have come through. So as Kyle transitions back over to some slides here, I think it's important for everybody to understand, first off, the solution, it should be measured in time to value. And so it's very easy to install. Really, once we have a connection to the data sources, it's all just a read function. We're able to start to make sense of it within days, not weeks or months. In addition to that, the solution can be deployed on-prem, in the public cloud delivered as a SaaS offering, or in your own environment as a customer, right? So all those things kind of come full circle to make it a very simple deployment, as well as something that is easily adoptable by your analysts, by your security team, or by other stakeholders within the business that want visibility to this.
Good. Well, we're kind of going down the theme. So let's kind of fast forward. We've solved this problem. We just saw Lou give, we now have visibility. We have real-time updates. We're receiving proactive notification. We have risk scores on different people and sites. Fantastic, right? And I now have the ability to set up policies around what kind of corrective action I want. If it's such an egregious thing, then I have the opportunity to just immediately, temporarily disable that part before it goes forward any further. Or perhaps it's just an email to my manager, the area owner, physical security area owner, say, hey, Kyle's up to something kind of funny. What's going on? Nothing. But okay, we solved that problem. But you said earlier, and I'm coming back to that theme, hold this thought, how do we make sure that these alarms and events don't get lost in the confusion? Because you've talked to me many times about what the state of the Security Operations Center or the Threat Detection Center is today. It's a pretty complicated one, isn't it?
Extremely so. So when we talk about how organizations are actually responding to alarms, in most cases they are flooded with your typical alarms that I alluded to earlier: door held open, door force, motion alarms are just being triggered left and right. And at scale, most organizations end up having to just go through bulk acknowledgement or end up masking a lot of those nuisance alarms. And so in a lot of cases, they're actually missing important and valuable insights to what's happening within those facilities.
Yeah, I mean, we hear, PSIM. Well, all PSIM does is actually correlate different alarms and say you don't have 5 different fires, you actually have 5 fire alarms going off, you only have 1 fire. But that doesn't really get rid of the noise, does it? Right? These operators are frankly overwhelmed with door held open, door forced open, any number of sensors, even, video analytics creating, and then you've got devices that are in ill health or in need of repair, and they're generating runaway alarms and other things. So it's a chaotic place, and it's a good question to say, why don't we make sure that these insider threats? And I think the answer is that the same vector flow platform that can provide the insider identity risk capability and intelligence also has the ability to be able to make the life and the management of alarm and alert activities simpler and easier. And the opportunity there is kind of the same way. Utilize data, apply intelligence to it, and then offer up the customer 2 different options. One is optimize the device for the conditions by which they're being used. A great example is I've got customers that have thousands of door held open alarms every day because it's Monday through Friday, and it's between 8 and 10. That's when all the traffic is coming through. Well, when the door was installed, it wasn't installed under those conditions, just factory installed. So why not a solution that can actually adjust the shut time on those particular days only during those hours, say from 1 second to 2 seconds, and get rid of 90% of all those false alarms? Or being able to detect runaway devices that have a power issue or a wiring issue, and being able to see inside that process and proactively identify that can eliminate your false alarm problem, so that your operators are laser focused on what's real and important. Guard dispatches are happening with purpose, and you can especially address some of these big insider threats by the others too.
So to make sure I'm hearing this correctly, I can understand, one, if it's a software programming issue, that can simply be changed because the software is observing how those devices are operating and can effectively share what the right adjustments are going to be to eliminate those alarms without exposing the organization to additional risk. So that's the first side is software. But the second side is, well, if the software is optimized, but the device is still functioning incorrectly, Now we can make a determination that it's actually a physical hardware problem that needs to be resolved either via your building team or Convergint coming out on a service call, replacing a device, or making changes.
Yeah, and you nailed it on the head. And we're different, right? So we're utilizing an opportunity to optimize the device under the conditions that it's either malfunctioning or generating lots of alarms, as opposed to what other solutions might be, which is hide that alarm or turn off the device because we don't want to listen to an alarm anymore. That's not a good solution. Or do mass deletions. That's not a good solution. Or I got too many alarms. Let me just keep dispatching guards to go check it out. Well, that's a waste of time and money. Nobody can really do that. So let's have something that's more sophisticated and intelligent that can eliminate 99% of those false and nuisance alarms so that people are really focused on what's impactful and real. And, you just touched on one, and we'll give Lou an opportunity to show us what that might look like. But, we talk about device optimization, but we also talk about that whole break fix process, which I think can be, you can eliminate the friction. You have very detailed information. When Convergint comes to put a technician on site, they know exactly what the problem is. They have the right person with the right tools and the right resources. It's a one and done repair, isn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah.
All right. So Lou, what would the dashboard for eliminating false alarms and having visibility into solving that particular problem?
Yeah, sure. I'll definitely show you that here, Kyle. So I think, the key for us, right, and you'll see a very similar look, if you will, to what we shared last time, right, from a dashboard perspective. Obviously the focus is really making sure that we're providing that we're helping the access control system not only be optimized, but that ensure that wherever the operational staff, whether they're using a CEM product or a PCM product or the native access control system for managing those alarms, what they see is real. What they see is actionable and something that requires their investigation. So, this dashboard here is going to show you, lots of key data around not only how our performance has been in eliminating alarms and where you're trending as an organization over, let's say, the last year or the last month, if you will, in terms of that alarm count and overlaying that with information like traffic and so forth, but allowing your SOC staff and administration to be able to understand, are we meeting our SLAs for time to acknowledge and our commitment to the business to serving our employees and staff with potential life safety issues, right? That's really what this is all about. If we can eliminate the nuisance and cut down on the white noise, we allow those real alarms, real issues to be responded to much faster. We can perhaps save someone that's truly in trouble, right? So that's really what this boils down to, is being able to eliminate that noise and give them something that's real and actionable. And measuring that performance and understanding where, because this also plays into the risk conversation as well. If I have lots of alarms from lots of different sites, clearly there's a lot of risk at that particular site. Why are there so many alarms happening in this one particular location? Do they have a very open policy, or is it very restrictive? People are propping doors open and things like that. So giving, organizations not only the visibility to these highest risk areas and sites, but also taking the necessary steps to reduce those efforts and reduce that chatter and provide the real actionable events.
Thank you, Lou.
I was going to say, just on the interest of systems health, similarly here, in addition to the alarm traffic, we're looking at that low level verbose data, stuff that your business analyst and technical teams take, hours to sometimes look at before they can determine whether a device truly needs to have a service ticket created for it. So lots of manual effort there. What VectorFlow can do is study that same stream of data, the log data, the journal data, that real low-level stuff from wattage changes and voltage changes, and understand what is the optimal configuration of a device, and then also helping the Convergint team in giving automated tickets into iCare so they can more quickly, more easily fix those devices and ultimately give you a higher level of security to your organization.
Thank you, Lou. Thanks for the walkthrough on that. It's very dynamic. And again, I think the key themes here is that everything's being done in real time. So you're not waiting for a clue or an answer to a problem. It's utilizing the power of data that exists, in the customer's environment already, right? It's just about bringing the intelligence out of that data. Can be deployed quickly, delivers quick business results, is affordable. Convergint can deploy it and support it. Sounds like a good solution. Do we have any questions kind of along the line? I know we're almost at time.
Yeah, we're right at time, but I want to pull a couple of questions here. So one question that came up, right? Can the solution also do any type of image recognition from CCTV footage? Or are we only talking about badge data? So Lou, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so we can integrate, certainly pull in the data from CCTV systems, understand the health of those devices as well, right? Understand the intelligence that's coming out of that system, because ultimately you're looking at this as one holistic solution for your SOC, and that comprises of, oftentimes lots of different data sources. So yes, definitely CCTV, intrusion detection, and other types of devices where we can understand those devices and the health and be able to give you some fixes for that.
I mean, that's perfect, Lou. One of the big things in addition to PACS information is CCTV has a significant amount of emotional harms, right?
Yeah.
If you are inundated with those, this is another option available to you that can help simplify and enable your teams to do more with less. One other question, obviously, we had shown a slide earlier about the number of integrations available.
Yeah.
That is just a snippet, right? What are you guys up to? Over 75 integrations now?
Yeah, I mean, we're
data sources.
We're a data company. We're all about the data, right? So, we probably have 30 or 40 physical access control, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, virtually everything that's out there, and new things coming all the time. But authoritative source systems like HR systems or other identity-based systems, but even down to kind of like logs and other applications where we could pull that data together and find the needle in the haystack. Really no limitations there. And then again, the goal is no rip and replace. Continue to use what you're using. Let us absorb the data. Let's make some intelligence out of it and move you from reactive to proactive.
100%. Well, we appreciate you being on this for the last 30 minutes. For our next step, obviously, Kyle and I are available at your convenience. And really the objective there is to understand what's happening in your environment, specific to your organization, the tools that you have in place, and how your people are using those. Really, at the end of the day, our job is to help understand, is there a way we can optimize that, help produce not only an ROI from an efficiencies perspective, but also what's the time to value? Can we have you in just days be able to have this stood up and combing through this data in a way that you just can't do with people?
Yeah, let's have a chat. The best starting place is what's unique to your organization and what kind of problems are you faced and challenged with, and let's talk it through. We're happy to go deeper, right? Lou only got maybe an eighth of what he normally gets to show the power and the capability of the solution. And we'll both be at ISC West here coming towards the end of March. So any folks out there that are attending the event, we can see each other there as well.
Yeah, we're learning more and more about what's impacting our customers on a daily basis in order to be their best service provider, bringing solutions like Vector Flow to the table to be able to have these very open and deep conversations around how we can, again, automate and move your organization forward in the most meaningful way possible. That's our objective. So with that, I can't thank you enough for being on, Lou. Kyle, pleasure as always. Thank you to all of you for joining us, and I look forward to talking with you again real soon.
Have a good week. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.